Now let me invite Mr. Prashant Ranade, the Vice Chairman of Syntel. Thank you, sir, for being with us today, and thank you very much, Syntel, for powering this event year on year for the last 3 times. So now, with a big round of applause to Syntel, we have Mr. Ram here and Mr. Prashant Ranade. Thank you very much, sir. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries on and off the dais, but most importantly, all the attendees who allow dignitaries an opportunity to be on and off the dais. I also want to acknowledge presence of my colleagues who are actually involved in day-to-day activity of CSR. Prasanna is there, NK as well as Ram. All 3 of them are based in Chennai. So maybe you can raise your hand and they will know who they are. Thank you. So I want to begin by sharing a couple of things. Lakshmi very appropriately mentioned that scale can only be achieved by government, and the foundation of everything we do is transparency, governance, and how we do it. There are a couple of things that, when I go over our CSR program, I'll also share a few thoughts about how we have done it. We are a small company in our own way. But I would also mention and underscore the fact that just throwing technology to create digital literacy is not the answer. Because that first video which we saw, I saw Bill Gates there on that video, so I'll quote him. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. For technology to change lives, it has to be grounded in solid understanding of human behavior, as well as appreciation for cultural differences. Because if we just copy and implement something, it typically has no impact. There is a Stanford professor who, interestingly, because all of us, I'm certainly technology, and want to make sure I'm not guilty of that. And while in the rest of my talk, I'll extol the virtues of technology and what it can do, I also want to temper it by saying that his research was quite interesting. He said very few technology applications over past 100 years have really created the impact that was expected. That is not to say that technology hasn't been effective in doing that, but our ability to decide how we use technology. So Thomas Edison, for example, in 1913, I'm sure there must have been a conference similar to this. He said that motion industry, which was very new at that time, is expected to profoundly change how education system works in America. Obviously, nothing like that happened. But on a flip side, just a few years prior to that, in 1903, bicycles, as we know today, were introduced. And they were also proclaimed to be morally hazardous technology because youngsters tended to veer away from home. So obviously, that didn't happen. So on a serious note, in terms of the opportunity as well as the nightmare or a challenge that we are confronted with, Lakshmi covered some of these areas. But if we look at the biggest benefit that we have in India today, and in spite of the issues in financial market, as well as volatility of last few days, it is the best time to be an Indian in India. Because we have perfect trifecta of many things going on. We have opportunity, we have investment, and we have optimism. 3 things that need to spur the growth. And if we look at the opportunity we have, we are the youngest country in the world. We got 356 million people, citizens, between the age of 10 to 24. Contrast that with many Western countries where there are less working people supporting more retired people. I actually feel good to be at my age and being an Indian. Then there is a need, which is also a challenge, for 200 million jobs to be created between now and 2022. And that is enormous, because empty mind can be devil's workshop. So if we don't do our job right, it can become a nightmare for India. And then digital India requires totally different skill sets than we have today. It is not just skill sets, but more education. Skill sets are easier. It is like training. It is targeted at specific tasks. But education, which requires broader and deeper and critical thinking, takes time. And that requires a totally different approach than just skilling or training. Mark Prensky, who was the first one to coin the term digital natives, I think he did that in 2005. So if we add to that and look at the challenge we have, the trainers and parents are really digital immigrants, right? And they have to make sure we do this skilling and education. So that's what makes the task enormous. I'll cover how Syntel, in our own small way, what we are focused on, and different programs which we are currently running. So we have 3 tracks. The first one is focus on education, second one is in actors, and third one is social causes. I'll just cover few areas in each one of those. But there is a common theme across all 3 of them, and that is volunteers. Because caring affection and attention and addressing the need of those who are going to be going through the program is not something that is a packaged product. That's why that volunteers are very important to make any program successful. So if you look at education, we are involved in several schools across the cities where we have centers. Predominantly we have, once we build our finish our new construction, we'll have largest presence actually in India in state of Tamil Nadu. And so we have several schools here in Bombay as well as in Pune where our volunteers are involved. And the focus of his prayas, by the way, is enriching young minds and imparting real life skills as well as computer literacy has been the objective. It was founded in 2006, so we have been around about 10 years, and a lot of our volunteers are there every day at these schools. Something we started about 15 to 16 months back, and it is still experimental. We don't have good results yet to be able to say it is scalable, and that is Khan Academy. We took initially the courses that are available and had about 3 locations in Mumbai where we started working with students, with volunteers. And the results have been mixed because our initial thought was English is the universal language and everyone can learn that. But we found out that did not work very well, Then we worked on, with the help of few teachers and professors, trying to map the Khan Academy courses to curriculum in the local schools to get students interested. And that seems to have resonated well, and math was the easiest subject to pick because the knowledge of language for children in the age group of 8 to 14 or so who come from vernacular medium didn't really matter, and a lot of them have done quite well. But it is still only 15 months into it, but we are very optimistic about that. In actors, it used to be SIFE. It was founded, or SIFE stood for Students in Free Enterprise. It was actually founded by Sam Walton back in early 90s. And our chairman, Bharat Desai, actually brought it to India in 2003. And we were both active in SIFE, and now it has become an actors since about 2001 in North America. And this is partnership among students, people from academic as well as industry. And teaching social entrepreneurship is the goal. And we have national championships, the competitions rather. And the last one was held last month in Delhi, that had about 90 colleges, about 58 projects, and then later on this year, there'll be a global competition. It is going to be in Johannesburg, South Africa, later this year. And we support that through our volunteers as well. And in social causes, there are several areas, but one I'll spend a little bit time on, something that we are very proud of, is MDRI. It is a registry that we formed where, when you have a donor and a person who needs bone marrow, now there has been an easier way to actually determine a match. It is called HLA, or human leukocyte antigen. And if there is a match purely on a blood test, you can create a database of that. And when a need arises, the chances of a match among siblings is 1 in 4. But outside the family, that is 1 in about 20,000 or 30,000. So using technology, we help create database. We promoted that amongst Syntelers, and over 18-month period now, we have a database in that organization of just under 30,000 Indians, because getting a match for Indians is difficult. Worldwide, there is a database of 20 million people, 8 million in North America, 16 in rest of the world. But out of that 20 million, Asians constituted less than 30,000. So the chances of someone of Asian origin getting a match was very, very remote. And this hopefully will aid that process. And I can tell you from personal experience that it happened only once, but it was absolutely a touching experience, a life-changing event when you are standing in front of two human beings and one looks at other and says, I'm alive because of you. Now you need consent of both people to, for them to be, their names to be announced publicly. So those are the causes that we are supporting in Syntel. And our, the positive thing is a lot of those, and I won't cover some of others under social causes, but MDRI as well as Khan Academy, Enactus, they have had a lot of impact. Areas of improvement, and that would be an appeal. I would like to learn if any of you have suggestions. I had set a goal about 6 years back, and I'll admit I'm nowhere near that. I was hoping that at least 80% of our employees will become volunteers. Now that was certainly an ambitious goal, and I know people fabricate numbers, change numbers, but that number is very, very low. And that is something that we really need to take a note of, because we can criticize a lot of things Western, but giving and volunteering is something that is rooted in their system, and we can improve substantially in that area. Because we can talk about technology, we can talk about digital literacy, but till that one thing changes, it will be difficult to achieve the scale that we must achieve. So I'm open to any suggestions you have as to how we can improve. So what is required? Clearly, these 3 A's, and I'll talk about it, but at the center of it is leverage. It is not always a massive force that is required, but knowing what is the right time and place to do it. I think several of you are technologists. It was Archimedes who first enunciated the principle of leverage, right? As to how applying a small force at right point can create disproportionate impact. So that is what we need to find out, because just throwing technology at something will not help. We have to understand the leverage, understand the partnership, and then if you look at 3 areas in terms of access, affordability, as well as availability, our ability to get the scale through that leverage and reach out to as many people as we can. So there are areas that we are looking at right now in terms of how we can improve effectiveness of our Syntel Prayas Foundation by looking at all these areas. If you look at devices, there's a professor at University of Michigan. He's studied a lot of these programs and how effective they have been. So, and he's, by the way, he calls himself recovering technoholic, because he said at one time he believed that throwing technology at any problem, will be the right solution. But now, when he was recently asked, what is the most productive way of learning through iPad? So his response was, if a person has the right learning skills, independent of the device, you will achieve it. So I think that is where volunteers are required, because absent that, it is very difficult to achieve the effectiveness that is required. On research projects also, and that's why I did not go into depth about effectiveness of about Khan Academy program so far, because initial 6-7 months, we all begin by certain expectations, and we actually see those results. I'm not saying, well, I guess we are biased too, and we look for those results or those successes. So we have to look at those with some skepticism and make sure we are able to achieve the scale and impact that we desire. So that is basically what I had. I'm glad to be here, and then when appropriate, if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer that. But how to bring about change, there is four things that can help. This is just my thought process, which is inculcating that culture of social change. It is not just technology, it is not just funding, but are we ready for that change? Is everyone involved? Second area is the partnership. All groups have to get involved. It is very easy to spend time unproductively by finger pointing, but that doesn't accomplish anything. The third area is long-term thinking as opposed to short-term. We all hear about it, but again, short-term versus long-term is not a dichotomy or a duality, normal duality, and we have to make sure short-term success feeds into long-term success. And then embedding digital curriculum right from the early age, because as I mentioned earlier, the digital natives, their way of learning is totally different than maybe what teachers or parents can think about. Right now, the effectiveness of gaming and what gaming can do as far as learning aid has been documented, proven. So we have to think of such innovative solutions to achieve the task that we have at hand. And clearly, it is a great opportunity for all of us. So thank you very much.